Vault, Steel City Vault.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the booth. I'm Brian David Marshall. I am joined by Chris Pikula, the meddling mage. How did the meddling mage spawn Jace?
My kid just likes broken cards, you know? Like, you show him a couple decks, he's like, I mean
who's the mind sculptor here?
Like
who is the mind sculptor here, him or you?
I mean, he really built this deck out of, like, he looked through my cube, and I'm like, pick a card to build a deck around, and he picked Tezzeret, Agent of Bolus. I was like, well, that's pretty degenerate. Like, he just doesn't, he doesn't want to attack the creatures. It's too complicated. Yeah. So yeah, he likes Jace.
So Magic players, just changing subjects, thinking about what we're looking at coming up here. Bad handwriting, kind of, I mean, vintage players can be a little
sloppy.
Randy, get a load of this handwriting.
So we got Nick Detwiler.
Get a load of this calligraphied deck list.
Nick Detwiler, who, he was my.
We can't show it to you yet. We can't publish the deck list, but
so Nick's a local East Coast tournament organizer for Vintage. He's a good friend of mine. He's the one who helped me track down the Medley Mage original art.
Oh, wonderful!
He's the one who inspired me to play Terra Nova in the first round of the Vintage Super League. I believe he owns the original art to a number of these workshop cards. I don't know if he owns Mishra's Workshop, but he has like the original art for Karn, the original art for like Crucible of Worlds. Maybe he's just like the workshop king. His deck list for his Martello shops list. I mean, you can't really see this, but yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, I've never seen a prettier.
And then the judges just like scarred it with their terrible handwriting as they did the deck check.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he didn't just do it at home ahead of time with like and age the paper. But yeah, this is the prettiest deck list I've ever seen. Like, we'll have to show a picture of it later.
Yeah.
Nick Detwiler on Martello shops, similar to what we saw last round. We'll be playing Brian Demars, Grand Prix champion, vintage connoisseur.
This is gonna be a humdinger, as they say. We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to round 3 of the Vintage Championship here at Eternal Weekend. I'm Brian Dave Marshall, joined by Chris Pikula, and we are watching Nick Detwiler versus Brian Demars. Chris Pikula, tell us about the matchup.
All right, Nick Detwiler, of course, if you know anything about the vintage community, you know he's got 4 Mishra's Workshop in his deck. This time he's playing the Martello Shops deck, which is the Forge Master version. Similar to what we just saw last round. Not quite as much of a lockdown as some of the other versions, but still, it's got almost all the lock pieces. Brian Demars is playing Steel City Vault, which is the heavy artifact based. Like, plenty of vintage decks are heavy artifact based, but this one is extreme. It's got 4 Seed of Synod, 4 Mox Opal. It is a full-blown, all the draw 7s vintage combo deck. Has 4 Thoughtcast. Which is extremely unusual.
Other than that, I feel like if I sat down with a police sketch artist to work out what I thought a vintage deck would look like, it would come out very close to this list.
I mean, nothing. It's hard for anything to seem more vintagey than this. And he's very lucky to be facing the Martello version of shops because there's no null rods.
Okay.
So null rod is, I mean, when 4 of your land are Seat of Synod, and you have Mox Opals in your deck, null rod's pretty bad news. So to not have to face that here is pretty good for him. But of course, it's still not great when you're trying to do lots of big things to have to play against a deck with three Spheres of Resistance, 4 Throne of Amethyst. Phyrexian Revoker is quite good in this matchup.
Looks like both players are mulliganing. What is mulliganing like in Vintage? What is the kind of hand that you're? They're both going to 5 here. What are the hands you're sending back?
Well, so the shops decks, they have to mulligan quite a bit. They really can't afford to not do something in the early game at all. They also, to be honest, a lot of times they do have, if they don't draw Mishra's Workshop, sometimes they just can't cast. So they have kind of 2 kinds of bad opening hands, like ones that have like Wormcoil Engine and Cut Off the Forge Master but don't have any fast mana, and then they also have the hands that are lots of fast mana and Cut Off the Forge Masters, but if you don't have a Sphere of Resistance or whatever, you can't really let your opponent do whatever they want in Vintage because you're going to get rolled and you're going to force a will. So they do have to mulligan quite a bit. The the combo deck is kind of more straightforward what you would imagine. Like he needs lands and spells, and he's got a lot of cards that don't, there's a lot of high variance cards, and here we go. And the die roll, of course, is huge here. Land, sphere, resistance. I say land, but it's Mission's Workshop.
Box number 2, please report to the side events banner. Thank you.
So Seat of the Sign, I gotta pay for my mocks.
Right. But if you can chain moxes here, that's very good against the non-null rod version of this deck. And wow, he's this guy.
So you just went Mox, Chrome Mox, into Lotus Petal.
Mox Opal, is that what that is?
Oh, Mox Opal.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. So here's where Revoker is great. He's probably gonna name I don't know which he names. Wow, so he probably named Mox Ruby and then stripped the Seat of Synod. It's a very good start. Demars does not have a lot of ways main deck to get rid of permanents, I'm guessing. He just has 2 Hurkyl's Recall. Or, I'm sorry, 1 Hurkyl's Recall.
Is that Mana Confluence?
Yeah, he has 4 Mana Confluence in his deck.
That's because just Tangle Wire exists and your City of Brass can get you.
It is kind of a bummer to see Mana Confluence replace City of Brass, but
Ancestral Recall. Be jealous, people at home.
Yeah, Ancestral is a good way to undo a mulligan.
Yeah, what are you mulliganing to? Ancestral.
But this is definitely the kind of matchup where if Nick just gets a couple spheres into play, where Brian's deck could just basically not really do anything powerful enough. Like, it's got cantrips in it, it's got thought casts. Like he's, his deck just can't operate under 2 spheres.
Right, 2 spheres with one of his mocks already shut off.
Right. I mean, the other interesting thing about Brian's deck is he has 2 Burning Wish. So which goes and gets Vandal Blast, Balance, Transmute Artifact, Tendrils of Agony, Thoughtseize. So I'm assuming Vandal Blast is a sorcery. Otherwise, it wouldn't be. It's a sorcery. So it's a very typical of the. This is a very typical.
Pay 2 mana to play a Black Lotus.
All right, this is very typical of what a mulligan workshop draw looks like. You can't do much because you're kind of locked under your own spheres.
Yeah.
You're attacking with like 1 Mishra's Factory or 1 Revoker. Like this is very typical, and you just hope that your opponent is going to kind of preordain and do whatever. But can't actually remove your creatures, and they'll be dead before they can actually do anything. You're just trying to slow the game down enough where
this game is molasses.
Yeah, I mean that's what the shop deck do. I mean, when the shop decks get great draws, it's over fast. Like Lodestone Golem, you're dead.
Right.
But this happens sometimes too. Right. So I mean, Nick is 2 mana away from being able to cast a Lodestone Golem, and 3 mana away from being able to cast a Forge Master. Oh wow! So Dak Faden comes down.
Oh my gosh! Dak Faden, steal your Revoker. So Revoker's still gonna.
Yeah, you don't get to rename it.
You don't get to rename it. They're still gonna keep that locked down, but. Oh, sounds like Steve Rubin got game 1 against Steve Menendian on the back table.
Yeah, that is not a surprise. Steve Rubin is playing Dredge, so the chance of Steve Menendian winning game 1 is extremely low. So Forge Master comes out? Oh no, I'm sorry. Phyrexian Metamorph comes out.
Okay.
Copies Revoker, naming Dak Faden.
Okay.
It's like...
So 1 by 1, we'll just...
Alright.
Shut off cards in your deck.
Right, so as far as what action Demars has in his deck, he's got Dak Faden, he's got Memory Jar, he's got... But, Memory Jar's not really action, it just draws you into more stuff. His real ways to win are... Does he... I assume he has Blightsteel? He does not actually have Blightsteel. Wow, this is really a memory jar deck. Like, he's got Goblin Welders, he's got memory jars. He doesn't have...
And there's a Lodestone Golem.
Yeah.
We have a ticking clock.
Yeah, I mean, the Ancient Tomb was a huge draw for Nick. Like, it let him actually cast his spells. Before that, he was really kind of locking himself out of the game.
All right.
Oh, wow. That's big.
The Goblin Tinker?
Yeah, the Goblin Welder.
Goblin Welder, yeah, sorry.
I don't...
Had to break a Lotus Petal to do that.
Right, I don't know what is in... there's nothing in Nick's graveyard, though, so we can't actually get the Lodestone Golem out of play. Oh, that's not true. So, because Brian controls the Revoker, he can sack the Revoker, which will send it to Nick's graveyard. So he can actually, over the course of 2 turns, get rid of the big creatures. But he may not have that much time. Interesting here, he can also chump block. He can chump block with the Revoker. I'm sorry, that's right. He can chump block the Revoker,
right,
which turns his own Mox back on, also activates the Welder.
Oh, that seems great.
Right, that seems really great. I'm not even sure the attack is correct. Although then when the Revoker comes back, he can name Goblin Welder. so you can only weld once.
Sure. That is...
That's an interesting interaction.
Not something you were like, oh, you know, we'll probably see today.
No, it's taking me. Yeah, I'm definitely playing catch up here, realizing the interaction of the. So he chumps at the Revoker, which is the obvious play, but now he can only weld once, because as soon as he welds that Revoker back, the only artifact in his own graveyard, I guess he has Lotus Petal and Seed of Synod. That doesn't seem particularly useful.
Doesn't he have a Black Lotus?
Oh, he has a Lotus, but it's all mana. He has no...
Yeah.
He has top in his hand. I don't know what else is in his hand. Just had to say go. Does he have a mana drain?
So is he going to chump block with the Welder and then use it, since he knows the Revoker is going to name Welder? Is he like just save himself? Oh, it doesn't. No, he doesn't. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want to.
Well, he's at 12. He can take another hit from the Golem.
All right, send it in.
I mean,
another
Revoker,
weird Welder spot.
I mean, another Revoker coming in. I mean, Nick doesn't actually have great attacks. If all he has in play is 2 Revokers, he can't afford to attack 1 Revoker into a Welder and turn on Dak Faden. So weirdly, the Welder would hold off 2 of the Revokers. There's a Mishra's Factory now too, but it would give him a lot of time. So if he welds back Revoker here, Revoker names Welder. Nick doesn't have a great attack the next turn.
Right.
Without knowing Brian's hand better, it's hard for me to predict what his full game plan is here. This is a lot of mana. The Worm Coil Engine?
The Worm Coil Engine or Kuldalfa Forge Master.
Please come up to the side events area. Once again, if you sign up for the Cons Booster Draft,
I can't actually tell.
2, please come up to the side events area.
Yeah, I think that's Kuldalfa.
Oh, so that's the Forge Master?
Yeah.
All right, so that's...
So sacrifice 3 artifacts, search your library for an artifact card, and put it onto the battlefield,
right.
Then shuffle your library.
Right, so Nick's version is a little bit different than Roland's was last round. He just really has a duplicate, a Steel Hellkite, a Worm Coil Engine, and a Sundering Titan. So he does have an additional kind of silver bullet to search for. But, he has a lot of artifacts to play right now, so the Forge Master can start getting pretty annoying with Tangle Wires and so forth.
So Vampiric Tutor.
It is a Worm Coil Engine.
Oh, it is a Worm Coil Engine.
Yeah, they look really similar.
So, okay. Well, that changes things.
So there's a... So now
he welders to get back
Black Lotus, yeah. He Vampiric Tutored also.
Yeah. Needs operating mana.
So
Everything
I guess
costs 2 more.
I'm assuming we're going to see, 2 more. He can get the Lotus back again. Hercules.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what it's there for.
Oh my gosh.
And now Deck Faden's active temporarily. There's a lot fewer Hercules recalls in Vintage these days than there used to be, but
shouldn't that? I guess he already replayed the Mox in the land.
But I mean, this used to be very.
Oh, it's target player.
This used to be a very common theme. The Hercules recall, a million things go back. There's just a lot fewer Hercules than there used to be, but mostly because there's just a lot fewer like Tinker for Blightsteel decks than there used to be. So people have got less enamored with Hercules recall, but it's especially good because Brian, because he's playing a Tendrils deck, he can actually use it offensively as well, by Hercules himself.
So something's getting welded.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to know what, without knowing Brian's exact hand. He has a lot of options right now. I mean, when you can just keep Black Lotusing, it's pretty good. And Yawgmoth's Will, this is just getting gross.
Oh my gosh. Yawgmoth's Will, start playing stuff out of my graveyard.
Alright, and this is the weakness of the Martello version, is the lack of Null Rod. Like,
so
I'm not even.
Bobby Blurkin, if you're in the room and I butchered your name, please come to the side of it, sir. Your draft is waiting for you.
So replays the
Once again,
Mox Opal.
if you're in the room and I butchered your name, please come up to the side of it.
Casts Ancestral Recall out of his graveyard.
And it's just so hard for Nick to recover. It doesn't even matter if I mean, Demars might just win this turn, but I'm not sure it matters. Like, especially with the deck fading out, I mean, it would take a lot. Nick doesn't have the Lightning Greaves in his deck, so it's not like he can cast something huge this turn and take out deck Faden, even if he gets to untap. Like, this is pretty grim.
Black Lotus comes back. Lotus Petal comes
And
back.
Demars' deck is just really built to go crazy here. Like, he's got so much free mana.
No way to abuse the Hercules recall here. Like
So
recalling
Hercules himself. Not really, because he's got a Lotus Petal. They can't replay the Seed of Synod.
He would get the two Moxes back.
I mean, it's possible that he could use it to kill. I mean, I don't know exactly what he has. I mean, he may just do a bunch of garbage here and then Burning Wish for Tendrils and kill him, but.
Dizzying decision trees.
Oh yeah, to try to I'm not even trying to go down it at this point. I mean, Brian can do a lot of stuff. And,
My analysis is Brian is probably going to kill him some way.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, with no spheres in play, it's just.
Yeah. So we're at 7 spells. It looks like he's doing his storm count up there on that yellow die. So I think we actually know what the plan here.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's really the only way for his deck to win. His two ways to win are with Tendrils or to deck his opponent with Memory Jar, which I think is probably pretty hard. I have basically zero experience with a deck quite like this.
And this is a deck Demars plays regularly.
Right.
New, right? I mean,
right? Yeah, and he's been working on versions of this for a while, I think.
okay, and then we see a Vampiric.
No, and when I say he does have Vault Key in his deck, and he even has 2 Voltaic keys, so I mean that it's not really a win condition. But
and when you say Vault Key, you of course mean which is all the turns.
All the turns, right? So it's not
if the match, were to somehow stretch on until the end of time, he could take all the turns between now and then.
Yes. So it is not a direct win condition, but under most circumstances it is. I mean, I suppose if somehow his Tendrils was removed from the game, but even then he would attack. He could probably kill you by attacking with Goblin Welders.
So you see Mana Craft.
Because he has Time Twister in his deck too, so he can't really deck himself.
Okay, there's your Burning Wish, and that should be enough for Nicholas. I've seen this before.
Yeah, I mean this is the kind of classic confrontation of broken blue deck versus shops where everything is fine, but that Hurkyl's Recall, especially if they have access to Black Lotus, so they're going to be able to do Hurkyl's Recall and something else, is just really difficult to overcome. I mean, the fact that he did all that without even drawing Tolarian Academy is... Nick's draw was just, they both double mulligans.
I was already interested, and now you're just sweet-talking me.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that Nick only had 5 cards, his beatdown wasn't fast enough. And he lost that first Revoker, so his beatdown was slowed down. And
I don't know if I'm playing Vintage, but when I do, it's borrowing somebody's Tolarian Academy deck.
Tolarian Academy is a real good Magic card. By the way, this deck has 4 Mana Confluence and 2 Cities of Brass.
Oh, okay. So how do we sideboard in Vintage?
Well, Demars has specific cards for this matchup. He has 2 Ingot Chewer. I'm assuming he has 2 Nature's Claim, 2 Ingot Chewer, an Ancient Grudge, a Vandal Blast. I'm assuming...
Ancient Grudge is better served in his sideboard.
No, Ancient Grudge is an instant.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
The Vandal Blast.
The Vandal Blast, yeah.
I'm assuming he's going to leave in the sideboard for the Burning Wishes. Unless this is like a weird matchup where... Because against a Shops deck, it's actually sometimes hard to cast a Burning Wish. Like, you don't want to... spells that all they do is get you another spell are just a little bit tough in this shop. But
sure.
I haven't played this match enough to know if he can actually make the deck function without the Burning Wishes. By the way, he does have a Tinker creature target in the sideboard in Sphinx Steelwind, but I don't think he uses that in this matchup because it's too likely to get metamorphed.
Sure.
And it's pro red and green, but it would just trade at that point. It doesn't get by itself. It's interesting that his only Tinker target is Sphinx of the Steelwind as far as creatures. That's the one I guess he wanted it for very specific matchups.
Sure.
So yeah, he's got a bunch of artifact kill, and that's really what's coming in. I don't know. The Balance is another card that I'm not sure. It doesn't seem great on the draw. Balance is like, in this deck, when you go first, is pretty nuts, because you have all the Mox Opals and stuff.
Sure.
Like, it's very easy.
So you just, you dump your hand, and then make you dump your hand,
right.
And then I have a whole developed board, and whatever I'm drawing, I can play.
Right. Now, Nick, I'm sure, kind of considers his main deck to already be good in this matchup. I am sure that he is going to side in the rest of his lock pieces. Like, he has a Friction Revoker and a Sphere of Resistance in the sideboard. He will